Cool. This is the fun video out of the series. This is a series about 8 episodes or so long as I take you through and I build everything on this pedal board. You'll see it on the screen. So in this one, I'm going to run through all of the actual effect pedals I'm using. None of the utilities stuff, none of the DI box here, or the MIDI controller, which isn't attached, power supply, nothing like that yet. Just the pedals that actually make noise, or are supposed to make noise. So let's run through the signal path. So the first pedal in the rig is the tuner up here in the top right corner. This is the Boss TU3S. It looks like half of what the Boss tuner normally does. And this one is always on. It's the first pedal in the chain. It's got a fantastic input buffer, so that's half the reason I chose it. I dig that it's always on. If I want to, I've got a volume pedal later so I can tune silently, or at full volume if you're into that. But basically why I chose it was the input buffer and just being able to have a tuner on all the time. I could have used the HX Stomps tuner. It's great. I used it a lot when I was on the ship and I had a really small rig. But it's a little bit harder to get to. You have to press 2 switches at once or waste one of the foot switches on that device for the tuner, so I thought it'd be nice to have a dedicated one on this board. So out of the tuner, it goes into the input of the Wampler Terraform. This is a modulation pedal, and I have it set up in pre-post routing. So it's got 2 ins and 2 outs. You can use it in stereo if you like, but a lot of people prefer certain modulation effects before the drive section and certain ones after. So I have this one set up in pre-post with the Ottawa envelope filter, flanger, phaser, and univibe before the drive section, and then the chorus, vibrato, and tremolo after that. So yeah, out of the pre-section of the Wampler Terraform, and then it's going to head into a little secret weapon I have down here. This is the J-Rocket Archer. It's a Klon style pedal. It's the gold version. And I don't know if I'm always going to use this, but if I need a little bit of gain to hit the front end of my HX Stomps digital amps, it can be really useful for that, some natural compression. Yeah, so after that, it comes out of the Archer, heads into the HX Stomp, the input of the HX Stomp for the first time. I'm just using one of my presets here that I have available on my website, and I've modified it just with an effects loop in there. Normally when I put stuff out, I take the effects loop out because if you don't use it, the preset won't make any sound. So I've just modified one of my existing presets for this video with an effects loop block. Okay? And I'm using the HX Stomp for amp simulation and overdrive, compression tones, anything to do with a dry guitar signal. The HX Stomp works really well in this sense. You can get some really clean sounds. And the reason I like to use a digital amp modeler instead of a natural tube amp is because I'm not necessarily going for pro level A+ drive tones and stuff. I'm mostly focused on getting really nice wet effects, and the HX Stomp honestly does such a great job at amp emulation that in most cases I think a lot of people wouldn't notice the difference in a live setting or recorded mix. Maybe if you're A-Bing them back to back, you could tell the difference, but the HX Stomp does a really, really nice job. And at this point, if you've been watching the channel, you might have asked, like, this is a lot of effort to go through, not just to get the full Helix. And the reason I didn't get the full Helix was because there's a lot of stuff the Helix can't do very well yet. Specifically, I'm talking about like octave effects, and I just really like the reverbs and the delays in the Empress devices here. The modulation in the HX Stomp and the Helix units are fantastic, and I do plan on using the HX Stomp for some stereo modulation effects triggered through the MC8 when I need to, but mostly I've got everything taken care of on this board except for drive, compression, amp simulation, and that's what the Helix is being used for. So out of the Helix, from the effects loop out of there, and we're going in mono still, we're still in mono, and the first thing we're going to hit is the Vertex Boost. And this is really cool. It's a great way, and I did a video on this, a short one, I mentioned it anyway, where I like to use the Vertex Boost with an expression pedal instead of a natural volume because it takes the actual volume potentiometer and that circuit out of your signal chain. So normally, as you roll it off, volume. You'd lose some high end, you could introduce some noise. The pot could get scratchy as it gets older, but by using an expression pedal, it's flawless. So this expression pedal is fed into the Mission Expressionator, where I can control either the boost or the HX Stomp or the MC8 later on. And I'll talk about that in the next video. So the Vertex boost with the knob all the way counterclockwise, it doesn't do anything. As you kick that up about halfway, which is where I like to leave it, it's about a 6 decibel boost, which is great for solos. It's totally clean. So it comes out of the HX Stomp, hits the boost there. And then after that, we're going to the Electro Harmonix Pitchfork, which does octave up and down and some other cool intervals. It tracks really well and it's beautiful for ambient music and creating textures. That's one of my favorite pedals. After that, we're going into the Freeze by Electro Harmonix, which is what you heard at the very beginning of the video. It's a sustain pedal for guitar. It's pretty cool. So I'll use that to kind of create the foundation of a soundscape. And then after that, we're going into the Warped Vinyl by Chase Bliss. And the reason I wanted the Freeze before the Warped Vinyl is because I want to be able to manipulate that held note with this pedal. So yeah, out of the Warped Vinyl, it's going into the Wampler Terraform's return section, where this will be used for chorus, vibrato, and tremolo. You'll notice I already have a chorus and vibrato pedal on my rig. I'm a huge fan of that kind of guitar effect. And the difference between an analog, which is what the Chase Bliss is, and a digital chorus effect, which is what the Wampler does, is huge. It's really awesome to have different options here. There's a harmonic tremolo, regular tremolo. Here's a dimension chorus. Way different sound than the Warped Vinyl, right? So this is the point that the rig enters stereo mode, comes out of the Wampler Terraform and goes into the Empress Echo system. If you're wearing headphones right now, you're going to notice that bouncing around in there. Comes out of the Echo system, and that's obviously used for delay and stuff. There's 35 presets you can use in there. Been a huge fan of that pedal for the last 2 years that I've had it. So it comes out of the Echo system into the reverb. The name is self-explanatory. Everything on that top row will be MIDI controlled eventually. It comes out of the reverb, and here's where it gets funny. Yeah, I have a third chorus pedal on my board. Hard to see here. This is the New Neighbor Inspire. It's got a lot of different modes on it, and I have it stored under the board because it's not often that I'm going to need to get to it. This is going to be an always-on pedal in some cases. When I'm making soundscape music, ambient music, I can turn on a chorus, or the way I have it dialed up right now is as a delay and chorus. So like this would remain always on, and it does two things. It creates more dimension in the sound, and it also helps when I change patches in the reverb. So you might have noticed that when I was playing this one and then switched to the other, there's kind of a fake spillover function that Empress has done. I'm going to go in there and turn that off later so I can use the Inspire to help carry the sound so it doesn't get totally dead and then come back in with the reverb. This is a way to keep it sounding a little bit more smooth as I transition between sounds. So out of the Inspire by New Neighbor and back into the HX Stomp. I did a full demo of the Inspire, by the way, as well. It's a really sweet pedal. We come back into the HX Stomp. We're still in stereo. And then from here, I can either use the looper in the Stomp, which really expands the usability of the looper when you add in a MIDI controller. So I could use it for the looper. I could use it for other stereo modulation effects. In fact, I could have 4 different chorus sounds going on this board at one time if I wanted to. And then out of the HX Stomp, this is the last pedal in the rig. It finally heads to the DI-SO Plus here in the bottom left. And this is a line isolator. It's kind of like a DI box, but it's built specifically for modelers. And I'm going to have a whole video on why this might be a necessary thing for you. It's definitely not necessary, but if you're a pro player and you want consistency, you know, when you go to different venues and stuff and you want the best sound possible, a line isolator is a great investment. So that's the last thing it hits there. I can run XLR out there, or I can run through the through. I can sum to mono with the DI-SO Plus. And then I've also got a patch bay on the side, which was the subject of the last video. So if you enjoyed this video, hit the like and the subscription button. There's a lot more videos on the channel about this pedal board build. I'm in a series right now. I'm doing about 8 videos total. And there's going to be a link in the description of the full playlist that you can check out if you want to learn about how I'm starting from the bottom and bringing this thing up to the pro level, how I'm programming MIDI stuff. It's not as scary as it might sound, and just how everything's being organized for me as a musician. And the way I like to play a lot of improvisational music, and MIDI, I've always felt just as itself isn't very conducive to that. It's kind of hard to set it up properly, but the MC8, it's a fantastic MIDI controller, and it's very much open box. It's open sandbox. And what I mean by that is you can really you can use it in so many different ways. Some people prefer to set up one bank for a song, and they run through each of their presets here. I want to be able to use it to access, 8 or 10 different sounds on each of my MIDI assignable pedals. And this will be done very quickly with the MC8, as opposed to scrolling through it manually on these pedals as I've had to do in the past. So anyway, more videos from me in the future. Thanks for checking this one out. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.